Have you ever wondered what secrets people leave behind in hotel rooms? A recent story about a man in Switzerland made me realize these temporary spaces hold more mysteries than we imagine.
That's such an intriguing way to think about hotels. What particular story caught your attention?
Well, it's about this man named Marco at the Hotel Edelweiss, 50 years old, living this ghost-like existence in room 304, with nothing but two mysterious suitcases he never opens and a view of a manicured garden he barely notices.
Hmm, so he's just existing there, watching life pass by. What's his daily routine like?
That's what's fascinating. He spends his days chain-smoking, drinking lukewarm coffee and observing other guests like some kind of reluctant spy. You've got these German tourists, this woman always crying in a fur coat, this businessman who never sleeps, and Marco's watching them all, searching for signs that his past might have caught up with him.
You know what's interesting about that kind of paranoid observation? It often tells us more about the observer than the observed.
Exactly right. And in Marco's case, we learn he used to be this ambitious young man running vineyards in Tuscany, in love with a woman named Isabella. But then ambition got the better of him. The story actually compares it to a viper in the sun, slowly coiling around his heart.
So what happened to turn this successful vineyard owner into a man hiding in a Swiss hotel?
Well, he got involved with some dangerous people, lured by promises of wealth and power, and whatever evidence exists of that betrayal, it's all locked away in those two leather suitcases that sit in his room like silent accusations.
The way you describe those suitcases makes them sound almost like characters themselves. These physical manifestations of guilt he can't escape.
That's because they really are like characters, these constant reminders of his past that he both guards and fears. Inside them are these photographs, this tarnished silver locket, and whatever damning evidence forced him to flee his old life.
So what finally forces him to confront these ghosts from his past?
Here's where it gets really interesting. This tall, gaunt man with cold, steely eyes checks into room 306, right next door. And even though Marco doesn't recognize him, something about the way this man carries himself triggers this primal fear in him.
That must completely shatter the careful routine he's built for himself in this neutral space.
Oh, it absolutely does. He spends the night pacing his room, the floorboards creaking beneath his feet, constantly looking at these suitcases that have become like dark spectres in the shadows. But you know what's fascinating? There's almost this sense of relief when he finally decides to confront what's in them.
That makes me think about how the anticipation of facing our fears is often worse than actually confronting them.
And that's really the heart of this story. It's about that moment when we realize we can't outrun our past anymore. The way Marco finally reaches for that first suitcase, his hand trembling. It's this universal moment of reckoning.
The setting itself seems perfectly chosen. Switzerland, this famously neutral country, as the backdrop for this moral confrontation.
You're right, the Hotel Edelweiss becomes this perfect metaphor for liminal space, where people like Marco exist in this sort of suspended animation. Even the name Edelweiss, a flower that only grows in high, remote places, speaks to this idea of isolation and escape.
Yet ultimately, no place is remote enough to truly escape ourselves, is it?
That's exactly what makes this story so powerful. It shows how our past is always there, waiting in the corner like those suitcases, until we find the courage to open them and face what's inside. It's about the weight of our choices and the price of running from them.
And in the end, we never actually learn what's in those suitcases, do we?
No, and that's what makes it so masterful. By leaving the contents a mystery, it becomes this perfect mirror for our own hidden stories, our own unconfronted truths. The story ends just as he's reaching for that first suitcase, leaving us to fill in the blanks with our own fears and regrets.
That's quite profound. How sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that leave some questions unanswered.
And perhaps that's the real message here, that redemption begins not with answers, but with the courage to finally ask the questions we've been avoiding. It's about that universal moment when we stop running and turn to face whatever's been chasing us.